Good evening, Cheeseheads, and welcome to the Cheese Room, a show where the run sheet runs itself purely because of our club being such a shambles. Tonight, we will touch on the United game last night, Liverpool away on Sunday, Donna Cullen and her potty mouth, the director of football, new coach, and maybe some score predictions. And there's some sort of thing about Enic out going along, apparently, as well. I've written good evening. There you go. So, joining me this evening, I don't know if HG is joining us or James is joining us. I think one of them might be stepping in. But joining me all the way from Sydney, Australia, Mr. Enic out himself, David Harris. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Looking forward to talking all things Tottenham with a fantastic panel tonight. But Enic out, but with love and no harm or aggression to anybody.
Okay. So my second favourite expat, living down in Australia, is Mr. Paul Fellows. How are you, Paul?
Well, I was really good until that intro. Thanks, mate. No, look, I'm fantastic, and I am looking forward to being about as popular as an outbreak of the clap at one of Vad's parties. So let's do it.
Just to clarify, Paul, my cousin lives in Australia, so you're number two.
Right? Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
Dave.
What about JP and Cam? What am I, 5 or 6 then?
Yeah, Jolly's
That's
crying
too
in
young.
the corner.
Jolly, yeah.
I've never actually interacted with Jolly apart from on social media, so never met him. See, yeah, he doesn't do his shows. Anyway, my favourite man from Brooklyn, Flat Cap. How are you, mate?
That's quite kind. 3 million to choose from, and he's picked me. But good to be here.
It's a one-horse race, Jack. Not gonna lie.
On time this time, so feeling good about myself. Starting up on a good trend.
So some of you may have noticed for the second week running, our beloved caller has not attended. I've just realised I haven't put the slides on since I left and came back in. Caller is doing some research this evening with Gibbo. They've gone to a Glen Hoddle night with Crackers hosting, and here, bit of a surprise. Caller's got a drink in his hand. There's a real shock for you all. So that's where the boys are tonight, and hopefully we'll have some nice stories next week when Caller returns, as long as he doesn't have any child-related issues that prevents him from hosting the show next Friday. Gibbo will be back Monday, hopefully.
His children,
Shall
to be
we
clear.
just say again?
His children, to be clear.
His children, who I'm sure
Sometimes.
those watching a couple of weeks ago will have heard his high thoughts of his children indeed. So HG, myself, a couple of the other guys discussed the game last night on the instant reaction show. So I'm not going to say very much. I'm going to let you guys crack on. Shall we start, Paul, with the starting lineup? Richarlison came in for Kulu. Obviously, we went back to the 3-4-3, ill-fated. What were your thoughts?
You say ill-fated, but I mean, if you look at how badly the four at the back worked for us, I think it's probably a sensible decision. I mean, you got to remember that all of these players have had the fucking life trained out of them by Tony for the last 18 months to play in one particular way, and then to try and change it was just madness. And everybody who called for it is, well, I think they're slightly mentally deficient, but that's just my opinion and doesn't represent the views of the Cheese Room. So I wasn't surprised at this. I think that giving Kulusevski a rest and letting Richarlison try and come on and do something was a good call. And I don't really see what other choices he had. There's no one that you could play at left back, no one you can play at right back. Maybe Sarr in the middle, but I don't see that happening. Against Man United, you've got to have two people who are slightly more defensive-minded. So absolutely no surprises in there for me whatsoever.
Had Davis been fully fit and Emerson been fully fit, could you see the four working then, Paul?
Not really, because I think that there needs to be some time for them to actually get back into a mentality of playing in a four. They've had this drilled into them for, I mean, it's not just Conte, they've had this drilled into them since Mourinho. So, you know, this is pretty much all they know. These managers that, and this is where I'm going to get really unpopular. So these managers that all the fan base were crying for, saying, bring me a winner, have trained the fucking life out of this squad, absolutely killed it, and now we're trying to find someone to blame for it. And maybe you should stick your own hands up.
Wow,
that was a bit early for a rant, wasn't it?
He's gone early. So if I
Mate, I am livid. I'm absolutely livid. I watched that game yesterday, and at half time, I thought, do you know what? It's been a bit tough, but it's a decent team. We're doing all right. And then they get booed when they go off. I have never, ever, ever had anyone respond positively to a boo. You know, if you're getting the best nosh you've ever had in your life and she uses a bit of teeth and you go, boo, do you think it's going to carry on? No, it's not. It's over. It's done. And anyone who thinks that any of those professional players is going to pick up their game because you're sitting on the sidelines booing because you paid your 50 quid, then you're a muppet. Done. Carry on.
So I'm interested in the concept of you booing in the boudoir during a period of lovemaking, but that may be a discussion for another time. So
maybe that could be our spin-off show.
But in terms of your, I know what you're saying about they've been coached the life out of them under these two trophy-winning managers that the world wanted at the time. So that sounds to me that you didn't want.
Hold on. Did anyone actually want Mourinho? Because I bloody didn't. Conte, yes, I wanted it, but I did not.
I remember having conversations with Porro, and I won't throw him under the bus because he's not here. But at the time, I was saying I would rather carry on with Poch the way we are now than suffer 1-0 boring bullshit football and win something.
I didn't want Poch sacked, but I'll be honest, when Jose was the replacement, I was like, oh, like that. I had definitely raised eyebrows and was quite excited to see that Jose was the replacement because I didn't want to see Poch sacked in the way he was. Absolutely never wanted it to happen. But I'll be honest, I am one of the very cringy Jose fanboys.
I'm not Jose. I didn't want Conte. That's not how I enjoy my football. I would much rather watch us play decent football, and I'd rather watch the Ozzy Ardiles team than watch a Mourinho team. It's just horrible. It's not what Spurs are about, and I really couldn't give a flying fuck if we win the Tin Pot League Cup or the FA Cup or whatever. Doesn't matter. I enjoyed the time that we had Pochettino at the helm because our club had an identity and we were part of it. And now we're not.
Kerry's got a question for you, Paul. Did you want Nuno?
No, not at all. No, Nuno was not the right choice for us. It was just a Jose light, really.
But there was no one else at the time. Everyone else had turned us down. So, and then they were looking at Zorro and Gattuso, and in the
Fonseca actually would have brought technically an attractive brand of football. It's just that Paratici went with Nuno. It looks like instead.
Yeah, I don't think it was the only choice. I mean, I think that the having Paratici there to find the manager, lent us to a certain kind of style that we were going to be bringing in. So, I don't think we had much choice. There was never going to be a swashbuckling style coming in with someone who'd been working for Conte for years, or with Conte for years.
Okay. Good evening to the student himself. Or as Kerry said, the students woke up. James, how are you, number one son?
I'm tremendous. It's always a positive feeling when, you wake up without a hangover and you've got half a pizza left for yourself for breakfast and, a couple cans of Red Bull. That's like, what more can you hope for as a university student? Didn't even have a lecture today. Called off. Perfect morning. Perfect evening. I'm tremendous. I thought I'd gate crash again, everybody. Seemingly this has become my style to gate crash the show, but figured it went well last night. I'll try again tonight. Thanks for having me on.
Talking of which, Dave, you were going to the kebab shop when you messaged me in the early hours this morning in my time. Did you wake up on the sofa with it?
No. I only had a couple of beers at the Crow's Nest Hotel and then got a kebab and then came back and worked on the run sheet because that's a dedication that we have to the cheese room.
There's a run sheet.
This one here that I'm semi-reading.
Yeah, there's a run sheet.
He actually had to rewrite all of it because 90% of it was typos and gibberish.
Run sheets. I just noticed something in the chat. I would like to know which dick King Hoddle doesn't like.
I think he meant Jose.
Yeah, I think it did, Jose. It wasn't you, Paul.
Really? Because I'm fully prepared for it. I am Super Dave Sanchez today, and I don't give a shit.
No, I think he was agreeing with your Jose rant.
Yeah, I think he probably was, knowing King.
If it was a while ago, but yeah.
It's a real shame that people are agreeing with me.
Yeah, it seems like you don't want it.
Oh, stop clicking, Dave. I was just going to, Adrian says he doesn't get hangovers in the morning. He doesn't get up to the afternoon.
Adrian,
Fair
mate, where
play,
are you
Adrian.
from? We should go out for a drink or two. You seem like a right laugh.
Adrian was on one of the shows once, and we sort of gave him the link. He joined.
Ah,
But he's very, very knowledgeable, Adrian. He runs a very big Facebook page as well, Spurs Facebook
well,
page.
Adrian, mate, meet me down the local. I'll have a pint with you.
I think he saw the double winning team.
Yeah, but yeah, let us know, Adrian. What was the first team you remember seeing Spurs? What era?
I think he saw the
Anyway,
double.
shall we move on?
But did he see Bryan Hill Messi against Crystal Palace?
Please. Shall we get back to the lineup, which we talked about?
Yeah, I was going to answer the original question. I was going to say I had no problem with Ryan Mason doing the 5-4-1. I had no problem with him setting up that way. I understand that mentality-wise, after the way we embarrassed ourselves with the attempt of a back four, that it probably would have been asking a lot to try that again. I feel like near the future, towards kind of the end of the season, with some of the opponents coming up, like Leeds, etc., wouldn't be a bad idea to try it then. But let's be honest, I think it was asking a lot to somehow keep with a back four of any kind. And as well, like the way our defense has proven to be, it pretty much just concedes to any bit of pressure, any moment under any time. We could be in full control of the game, and it feels like we could still concede. So especially after watching us concede 5 in 20 minutes, I actually even responded saying I'd almost rather us play with 9 behind the ball for the rest of the season, because I don't like watching 5 goals go into my own net. I'm just that type of guy. So I'm actually happy that Ryan Mason set up that way. I think he probably still set up a bit too sort of cautiously and defensive, because the moment that he started to make some proactive substitutions, all of a sudden we were kind of, all back into the game. But I don't mind him setting up that way originally. I feel like, though, we did kind of start off a bit too defensive, kind of maybe mentality-wise, not really personnel-wise, but more kind of just mentality-wise.
And of course, Fraser Forster was in goal for the mortally wounded on death's door, Hugo Lloris.
I feel like it would have been a coincidence, though, if Hugo did make a quick return. So I probably would have been angrier had he made his return, all of a sudden, to the lineup for Man United. I probably would have been angrier. To be fair. So I'm happy to see him gone. But I guess further speculation on that muscle injury will be had.
Peut-être c'est la fin. Peut-être c'est la fin pour Hugo's Tottenham career, as they say in France.
Rarely is a muscle injury a reason the player doesn't. It's normally a specific muscle is mentioned, isn't it? Or a leg injury or something.
Your heart is a muscle. Maybe his heart.
Muscle injury.
Maybe it's an embarrassing muscle.
Yeah, your heart can be a muscle, John. So maybe his heart has just been hurt after the way Skippy told him off, maybe in the dressing room.
Oh, what if he broke his knob? You're not going to admit it's a knob injury, are you? That can happen, by the way. Google it. That is a muscle injury that can happen. So maybe that's the injury that occurred and he couldn't play because of it, and he just didn't want to admit it. Who knows?
I'm not convinced the penis is a muscle.
Google it. You can break it. You can.
Yeah,
break
look,
it.
I am not going to.
Considering he's as white as a ghost going into these games, I'm doubting, any of his is hanging low at all, or if it's even there at all. To be fair, so, I don't know.
Well, I mean, on the subject of French,
bothering him.
On the subject of French penises, apparently when Steve Malbranc joined us, he couldn't play at the start because he was having a penis extension operation, allegedly, just to be clear.
He's not French. Wasn't he Belgian?
Malbranc. I thought he was
Wasn't
French.
he Belgian? Was he French? Maybe he was French, sorry.
So the thing that we're arguing about is not whether he had a knob extension, but whether he's French or Belgian.
Yeah, exactly.
What has happened?
I don't know either way.
First part was
if he had a knob extension. I can't prove or disprove that. And
So
I have no
anyway.
intention of finding out either. I'm not
So
Googling that, I have to say.
So we've dragged the line-out conversation now for 15 whole minutes.
Yeah, I made an attempt at the 5-4-1, but
Sorry.
but Forster, it was great to see him back in there, Dave. Team
Absolutely.
Forster.
Yes.
We 100%. The back line are so much more comfortable with the ball at Forster's feet than Lloris. There's just panic stations, isn't it? All around when Lloris is there. Forster isn't the best with the ball at his feet, but he's so much better. It's not even like a close call to him.
He was pretty good in the last match. He had a few nice pings up to Richarlison as well as Kane, and any time that the ball is given back to him, he just looks assured of himself. So, that's already miles beyond Hugo. And it seemed like Man United, when we knew we passed it back to Forster, they didn't seem so eager to try to, put further pressure on because they knew that he was assured of himself and how he was going to do it. And he was very good as well. As I think what Hugo does is often he kind of goes for a short pass when there are really no options available, when he should just go long and try to maybe catch them out for, maybe being too high or maybe standing, maybe throwing too many players forward. But Forster, I think, did that excellently. Anytime that he saw that there wasn't really a short pass available, or Man United were probably cheating a bit too high up the pitch, he sent it long up to Kane and Richarlison, and it was usually on the money.
What's your views on Forster?
Look, I think that I don't think as a keeper he's better than Lloris necessarily, but I think that the attributes that he has with his feet definitely make a difference. I mean, it's been something that we've been concerned about with Hugo for quite a number of years, that he's not particularly good with the ball at his feet. He's prone to making mistakes. He's prone to giving some hospital passes that put us under pressure. And we've questioned whether the right thing to do is to play out from the back if that's the type of keeper we have. Unfortunately, again, come back to the way that the players have been set up and the way that they've been trained, and that's what they've been told to do. So that's the mentality we're having. We're playing from the back, and we've never gone, well, let's change the keeper. And I think that Forster has done really well in terms of having the ball at his feet. Still don't think he's as good a shot stopper, but he's also fucking huge. I mean, you've really got to get things absolutely accurate to get it past him when you're bending one of those in. So I think he's probably the best choice at the moment.
Yeah, agreed.
Look at that. I didn't go
let's
on
talk
a
about. Well done. Congratulations. It's early. Let's talk about the first goal, Sancho goal. I thought we started all right, but they broke away. Sancho cut in on his right foot past Romero and Porro, who were a bit like statues, Dave, weren't they?
They were. They didn't cover themselves in glory in that particular moment of the game. But then they both went on to have far stronger moments. But Sancho, who's not been great since he's come to United, he did well and got it in. And that goal was pretty early on. And then the commentators out here, which is probably beyond the being stream or thing around the world, lots of snarky Newcastle comments at that time. Oh, is this going to be another one of those and this, that, and the other? Because we have become a laughing stock this week. But
yeah, 2 minutes they were saying, "Oh, it's already better than the weekend."
Yeah, that's right. All that kind of little comedy moments that you get. Who was the co-commentator? Do you remember, Paul? I can't remember. Anyway,
it was Townsend.
Yeah, Chelsea, isn't he?
Oh, we had Glenn Hoddle as our co-commentator.
Oh, that would be much more pleasant.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, not a good start. And then you think, well, this isn't good. This could get toxic quickly.
Yeah. James, what was your view on the first goal?
Well, I didn't see the first goal beyond highlights. Again, like I mentioned last night, I was in a different pub that wasn't showing it. From the highlights, crap defending, innit? Sorry, poor defending, isn't it? Yeah, but I didn't see it while it was happening, so don't have any major views on that one. Saw the second goal, though.
Okay, we'll come back to you then. Thanks for your insight on that one. Jack, could you... what should Porro or Romero have done?
I think it was majority Porro's fault on that one, because if I remember correctly, I think Bruno receives it from Anthony or whatever, and then Porro, for whatever reason, decides to tuck in behind Romero, kind of like he tucks in really far inside, and there really wasn't, I think, a reason for that in the first place, if you ask me. So I think he basically gives, the way I put it today was that I think he gives, by tucking inside and giving Sancho all that space to receive the ball, he kind of gives Sancho a pretty easy idea of what he wants to do with it before he even gets the ball in the first place. He kind of made his mind up already, Sancho, was to cut inside, go for the side netting, kind of curling it around Forster. And it was actually, I think, once Sancho received it, I thought Romero and Porro did pretty decently at trying to close down the angle. But I think the fact that they gave Sancho that much space in the first place made his decision quite easy before he received it. And he did quite well with it. So I would put it more on Porro, if anything, than actually Romero, because Romero was kind of keeping his space, whereas Porro, for some reason, tucked in like further inside than even Romero was, and that doesn't make any sense considering he's the wing back in the first place. So I kind of thought it was more on Porro, and maybe Forster could have done a bit better on the save, but it just looked like Sancho, with all that space, knew exactly what he wanted to do with it, and he punished him for it actually quite well.
Okay. Paul, on last night's show, HG was very much, everybody knows Sancho can't use his left foot. You just show him on his left foot, but they let him cut inside.
Yep, yeah, they did. And I think so. Something just came up in the chat as well. Why do our defenders never engage the attacker? We all ripped the shit out of Romero for doing that too aggressively 3 months ago. So 3 months ago, Romero probably would have gone flying in and put Sancho up in the air and got a yellow card for it. And we all went, no, you can't behave like that because you're going to get more red cards. And now we're going, why aren't you doing it? So, you know, I think that we have to sort of, we have to accept that these players are either going to do one thing or another thing. And if they're not going to be flying in, they're not going to be engaging. Someone like Romero is not just going to be standing up and showing him on his wrong side. That's not how he plays. You know, you cannot put that square peg in a round hole. Romero is going to do one of two things. He's going to either fly in and take the ball and the player, or he's probably going to just try and block the shot. He's not going to just stand him off. Porro, different thing. Porro gets caught out positionally all the time. And I think we can't rely on Porro as a defensive player. So we have to then look at what the midfield does to protect that. And I don't think the midfield were protective enough in that particular instance. The other thing that we have to remember as well is Sancho's a fucking good player. You know, and sometimes good players get good goals.
Yeah. I was going to say, hi, Holly. We must get you back on the show soon. Davo, I was going to ask you a question. Shall we move on to the Dier goal?
You mean the
Actually, let's
goal?
talk before that. Let's talk about we had a number of opportunities where we seemed to cross the ball right across the Man United goal line, but never had anyone in the box.
Yeah, I mean, there was one move I remember where Sonny was like hanging back, hadn't arrived correctly into the box, and the ball went flying across. There was one cross that I think Perisic did that he hit it way too hard. So we were getting back into the game. Now, off the top of my head, if I remember correctly, Son was on the right and Richarlison was on the left. So you had attackers playing on their right, on their correct foot on the flank that they're on, which is not what we've often seen over the last few years. So that was quite interesting. I thought Richarlison, as always you would say about him, worked hard, but he did show Chris Armstrong tendencies of getting caught offside every 2 or 3 minutes. And I thought that, you know, he's got to read the line better in terms of what he needs to do. Paul, you'd remember Chris Armstrong, wouldn't you?
I do. I met Chris Armstrong when I was working in a bar in Epping.
There you go. Yeah,
he was a really nice guy.
Because he grew massive dreadlocks, didn't he, after he retired?
Yeah.
And then didn't he get done for drugs?
That wasn't when I met him. I met him when he just signed for Spurs. There was a bar in Epping called City Limits that a lot of the players used to go into. And Armstrong came in, really nice guy. Dimitrescu also came in. He was a complete cock. So there you go. That's my exclusive. Dimitrescu was a cock.
Did he come in with the police? Did Dimitrescu come in with the senior police officer's wife, who at the time he was seeing?
Well, I don't know because I didn't know the lady that he came in. There was definitely ladies with him, but he was drinking Campari and soda. So, you know, that's also a bit like...
I once served a pint to Terry Fenwick when he was at Portsmouth. That was my limit, really.
Right.
It wasn't very exciting. He was terrible for Spurs, wasn't he? And do you know what's more frustrating? As well, Davo knows this story. Apparently, Spurs could have re-signed, Terry Venables could have signed Graham Roberts back when he was at Rangers, before he went to Chelsea, and he decided to sign Fenwick instead, which just really pees me off.
Yeah, because Fenwick followed Venables wherever he went, apart from Barcelona, surprisingly.
But there was a limit on foreign players at that point, wasn't there? And they had Archibald, Hughes and Lineker, so they couldn't have got any more players.
Fair enough.
Apparently, you can only sign there if you're a striker, I think. I may have made that up. Yeah. Okay, so this is the question. Perisic gets in through the left.
Mm.
This experienced player hits the shot straight at De Gea rather than the corner.
Mm-hmm.
It's going out for a throw-in. Perisic runs faster than he ever has in his life to slide to keep the ball in.
Yeah.
Tries to cross it, gets blocked. Falls to flappy hands Hojbjerg, who manages to lose it. 5 seconds later, Rashford to put the ball in the back of the net. Should Perisic have let the ball go out for a corner? Is my first question, Jack.
I don't know. Like, I think initially we kind of had, like, it's hard to say, like, yes, maybe, but it felt like he just did really poor with it. He should have been able to get across in. He decided to take like 2 to 3 extra touches, if I recall, and then just hit it against his defender like Sessegnon often does. So I feel like he made the right decision by trying to put a ball back into the box, but failed in doing so. And then we got punished for it. But ultimately, the second goal, I mean, let's be honest, like, I don't think you should throw flappy hands or Perisic at all into it. It's all on, Mr. Eric Dier. I think the second goal, I think it's just entirely on him.
We'll come to Dier. However,
but I don't know. I think Perisic, like, he took the touch and he decided to take his time with the cross, and somehow it got blocked when it shouldn't have. He should have been able to get that into the box, in my opinion.
Every single one of us knew the moment Rashford got that ball, he was going to rinse Dier. Anyone disagree with that?
I just think his initial positioning, though, was really poor in the first place, actually, Dier, because Rashford is positioning himself behind the line, so he's already going to be onside no matter what. And so Dier, for some reason, is standing only like 5 yards away from Longley, tucked on the left-hand side, which gives Bruno like all that space to hit the ball into. He plays like a perfect ball, but he could have missed the ball by like 20, 30 yards, and Rashford still would have been like well and behind, because Dier, for some reason, is hit way too far to the left, and it gives, I think, in my opinion, Bruno all that space to hit it into. Makes it a much easier pass, because if he actually was positioning himself in between, sort of like Longley and Rashford, he probably would have made that pass a lot harder. That's just my opinion. And then the defending afterwards was, I think, just way too similar to the Iheanacho goals that he conceded to Leicester, where for some reason in the one-on-one, Eric Dier decides to never engage ever. He just shows the guy kind of just to a very easy side and lets him finish from there. It was very similar defending to the Leicester goals that he was also atrocious in.
Okay.
Eric Dier.
You got a poem coming, Dave. You sound like you're building an ode to Eric Dier.
Fucking hell, is it Morrissey on reading poetry or something? Is Dave doing that? All right.
I might do a poem to Eric Dier. Well, we've got the close season coming up where we've obviously got lots of good content. Please stay tuned in over the summer. An Eric Dier poem could be on its way. He wouldn't even qualify for Sacred Cow because there's no debate about him. He's just not very good. And it was just an inevitability about it. As soon as that ball came into Rashford's got the pace. And I think the thing about Dier, which we've talked about, and also Sanchez as well, is that their body shape and body technique when they're in those certain positions and when they're defending has been appalling for years. Now, whether that's the way they're trained or whether that's just they're not very well, I don't think they're very good anyway. But they don't help themselves in that regard. You look at someone, and I'm going to go down the nostalgic route. You look at someone like Gary Mabbott, who wasn't the fastest ever, but he had very good anticipation. He sensed the danger. He knew what was going on, and he could do that. And he had a good footballing intelligence playing at the back. Yeah, Dier, obviously, he hasn't got that, and all I'd want next season is that he is on the bench and used potentially in the Carabao Cup, and that's it.
No.
If that, right? I don't think we'll sell him. I think there's more to get. You've got to get rid of your Rodon, probably your Tanganga, and probably your Sanchez. That's 3 at least.
Here's my 3. Sanchez, Rodon, and then Dier. Thoughts on that? Because then you get to keep Tanganga, who's homegrown and keeps the very important homegrown spot. Dier doesn't keep a homegrown spot. He occupies one of the non-homegrown spots. So that could be given to anybody in the world. And so in my opinion, then gives more reason to keep around Tanganga, who's also younger. So maybe Tanganga, Davies, Longley, keep around. And then you get rid of Dier, Sanchez, and Rodon.
Are you just trying to wind Dave up now?
Well, the Longley part did not need to be added. That was more to make my argument less convincing. But
if we keep Longley, then you've got to keep Lloris then.
But let's say you don't. Just take Longley. Forget I said Longley. But you keep Davies, Romero, and Tanganga.
Paul.
Yeah.
You still get rid of 3 though.
Paul.
Yeah.
What do we do on Sunday? Do we play the same back 3 on Sunday? We know Dier's a shit show. We know QT Romero is hot-headed, and we know Longley is quite slow. But we don't really have any other options, do we?
So the first thing about the Rashford goal is that we're all Eric Dier was rinsed for pace. Yeah, he probably should have been better positionally, but at the time we were pushing. So we were pushing. There was a huge gap. Bruno saw the gap, and Dier is the last player that we get to blame. So that's where Eric Dier sits in there. He's not fast. His strength is sitting in the middle of a back 3 and organising it. So when we're not pushing as high up, which is what they've been trained to do for quite a long time, going back to the earlier rant, that's how they've been trained. He does okay in keeping the 3 of them together. His job is pretty much to be in the middle and to get rid of the ball. He does that quite well. He's going to get caned for pace every single time he gets a fast player against him. Do we have anyone else who can sit in the middle and hold that together? Don't know. Don't think so. Longley's not going to do that. Davis isn't going to do that. Romero's not going to do that. Tanganga, probably not. When he first came to the club, and again, this will be unpopular, but Dave Sanchez did really well in the middle of the back 3. Granted, he had Alderweireld and Vertonghen next to him, which, I think even James could do well with Alderweireld and Vertonghen next to him. We don't look. Going back to your question, I don't think we have a choice. I think you will see exactly the same back 3 as we had against United.
How soon can you make it up to Liverpool, James?
Me? I can be there in 5 hours if I'm needed. If Big Ryan wants to give me a ring, I'm sure I can play in the back line. Although, I played as a striker and I played goalkeeper for a couple of seasons at club level, my local team, and I played up front a lot of the time. But the manager I have, who was very much, I actually saw him in the pub the other week. He is the definition of, the old English 4-4-2 Nova formation, smoking on the touchlines, proper English manager. He thought I was supposed to be a brilliant defender. I just hate playing defence because I was like 13. But maybe he was onto something, and maybe I'm actually the next Maldini.
It's very loud.
Apologies, that's some knobhead racing along.
It's Portsmouth, James. That's the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you hear that? It's probably a bloody BMW, isn't it? Anywho, hey, I reckon I could do a better job than Eric Dier. I've got a bit more legs than him. I'm still fairly quick. I mean, I might need a smoke break at about 20 minutes, but you better believe there's going to be some 2-footed tackles on Mohamed Salah. Like, I'm not holding anything back. I might get red carded in about 20 minutes, but nothing's going past me.
Eric Dyer's taking a break for the restroom, so a smoke break is probably not nearly as bad. At least you get to still see the pitch.
Johan Cruyff took a smoke break. Just saying.
I think, going back to actually football and not Johan Cruyff having a fag, I think that our biggest problem is not necessarily the defence. I think that we get overrun in midfield every single game, and we were overrun in midfield in the first half of the Man United game, and that puts the defence under pressure. So, we talked a lot about having Hugo in goal and how that puts the defence under pressure because they're nervous. But what about how the midfield are playing? We constantly got 2 in midfield against 3 in midfield. And we struggle every time. It gets overrun. So what do we do about the midfield? That's probably where the biggest weakness is. And unfortunately, the injuries that we've had have absolutely killed us in the midfield area as well. So I think more than looking at kicking out Dier, we need to look at how we strengthen that midfield area, because that's where it starts.
So the answer for you is what we did second half. We dropped Kane more. Kane dropped back further, became the creative player, and second half he was by far the best player on the pitch. I know
Yeah,
it's
but
the
doesn't
waste
that
of the
take
best
away
goal
from
scorer we've ever
having
had.
the best striker in the world up in the opposition penalty box?
The trouble is, if we can't get the ball to him, what's the point? We've got other strikers, so let's give it. Like, we're going to get Liverpool aren't having a great season, but they play 3-man midfield. We
Yeah,
need to
so
match them
wouldn't we
up.
be better in sacrificing Richarlison or Kulusevski and putting Sarr in the midfield as the game gets stretched? Maybe then bring Kulu into play as a 10. I know he didn't do particularly well as a 10 at Juventus, but he definitely has the attributes to do it.
My worry with Sarr, Skipp, and Hojbjerg is they're all a bit similar, and that's true. Without Bentancur or even Bissouma, who we've not seen anywhere near the best of because of Conte's system, there's a bit too. Conte didn't want to sign Maddison. The club would have apparently gone for him if Conte wanted. Conte said he didn't want him, and without that Emerson type player, it's all very similar. So whether you try putting Kulu in that 10 role, like you say, that could be an option as well. I actually thought when Kulu came on last night, it was his best performance for probably since the World Cup, because he's been terrible recently.
I mean, I think Sarr's got more of a passing range than the other two, is probably, and like, I think the view is a little bit that he's not as great when we don't have possession. So I think that obviously the problem we've only got 3 fit central midfielders, and Hojbjerg is just well off it, which is a combination of he's played a lot of football over the last few years or is reverting to type. And I think the other issue is with this is that we've all known all season we're getting overrun in midfield every time because we've got 2 there and everyone else is set up with 3 more or less. And one of the disappointments of the season has been Bissouma, because I was really, really excited when we got him, but he's not worked out when he's played, because he's played as part of a 2-man midfield. When on occasion we've had 3 in the midfield, like some of the games where I think Leeds, I think Leicester, when he changed things around, it looked a lot better. And Hojbjerg and Bentancur got forward, and we got some joy out of that. But it's something that whoever's going to come in, and we'll get onto that next season, who's the coach. The question is, a lot of people are going to cry out that we go to a back 4, and I get that, but the squad is stacked full of wing backs who can't play fullback. So you'd be looking at Reggie, Emerson. Who else is there? Ben Davies potentially, but not really as a left back anymore. Porro can't play as a fullback. We know that. Perisic will be gone. You've got Spence. Who else? Is there anyone else?
Spence has been playing right back in France.
Has he?
And was
right,
so
we've got a lot of fullbacks, wing backs, and we understand why. And then you got Sess, who's not a fullback. He's not a left wing back. I don't even know. I mean, I think he should go. So I agree with you, Paul, in terms of looking at the formation. 3 in the midfield is probably the way to go. But that will probably, you are obviously as a 5-3-2, or you're going to be looking at having fullbacks and playing a back 4 again, which means you could probably have 5 centre backs in the squad. But that's still a lot of churn to get through. But that's the reflection of the fact we've had so many managers.
Yeah, I'm not against having a 5-3-2, and I think that if you look at Skipp when he was at Norwich, he was far more progressive than he is now. So Skipp definitely has he's no Eriksen, but he definitely has the ability to be far more progressive. And the problem with Skipp and Hojbjerg is they're constantly putting out fires. And I know like Hojbjerg is getting a bit of a slagging, but he is working his ringer off every single game because they're constantly trying to put out fires because we're getting overrun. So, if we can see that, and quite frankly, Ryan Mason has more football knowledge in his little finger than all of us put together, then Ryan Mason should be able to see that, and Ryan Mason should be able to make the changes that we need. And maybe that was his thinking about dropping Kane in to just give, the extra body, but also the creativity coming from the midfield area, because that's another place that we've been severely lacking for, let's say about 3 or 4 years.
Well, since Eriksen left, basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah, but I know a lot of people saying, since Eriksen left and look how he played and this, that, and the other. I do want to remind everyone, for the last 12 to 18 months of his time at Tottenham, he was not playing well at all.
No.
damn
It was an
There
absolute
were
joy
games he
to
made.
still can't take a corner.
Yeah,
It
we
was
think
absolute
Perisic
joy
should
to
take a
always
corner.
take a corner for Man United, and it hit the first man. That was beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was ironic.
the our corners are much better. Has to be said. Porro took quite a few last night.
Yeah, Porro's
And
great
I
at
think
them as well.
was it Perisic almost scored or Longley almost scored a flicked head at the near post?
I think
First
it
half.
was
I can't remember
Perisic. I think you're right. Perisic.
Perisic.
Yeah. Yeah.
We certainly do look more and it's interesting. The only coach that stayed from the Conte time is Gianni Vio, the
I'm not sure if you
the,
saw my
set
tweet
piece
though,
coach.
John. I'm not sure if you saw my tweet, but I guess I'll repeat
No, I
it
didn't.
now. I think Gianni Vio is proving to be such a good set piece coach because he was able to evade all of the staff sackings like a striker would at the back post on a set piece.
Very good, Jack. Very good.
Da-dum.
Smooth.
Well done.
I like that. Very smooth.
He's a sly one.
So I thought we started off much more brightly, much more up tempo second half, and then eventually we got the goal. What Davo? I just thought it was a really, really clever finish by Porro.
Yeah, I think so because he did control it with his left foot, which is obviously his weaker foot, and he smacked it in, and he showed great technique, and you know he and the celebration and the passion that he showed. I mean, I think now obviously I don't know however many thousands of miles away, I felt from my telly that the atmosphere in the stadium in the first half was pretty flat, pretty negative, some Levy out chants and this, that, and the other. And it felt a bit like. There was one game in the 96-97 season where we lost 6-1 against Bolton, who were in the lower division in the League Cup. And then we played Liverpool the next game, and it was pretty flat, right? And we lost, but not by a lot. And I felt a little bit like that. But second half, I got the vibe that the crowd were like going, yeah, we know we're shit, but we're playing. There's more about us in the second half. And I felt it was more of a unified crowd and a better atmosphere in the second half. Although you know, I'm sitting halfway around the world. That's the feeling I got off my telly.
My sister was there,
Okay.
and I spoke to her about the atmosphere. And at the start, there was a lot of Levy out stuff. There was a bunch of black Levy out balloons. There was a lot of Levy out chanting, and she said, frankly, I felt quite embarrassed by it all. You know, I mean, you know, we all understand that there are issues at the club. We all understand that we'd like to see those issues resolved so that we can have a stronger club, a stronger team going forward. But doing it in the middle of a game is just not, how does that benefit the 11 players out on the pitch? So, you know, when we did have a bit of a shaky start and the crowd just got the whole kind of fuck you vibe going, the players were never going to respond to that. Whatever Mason said at half time totally changed the way that the team came out, and it totally changed the vibe of what was going on. And then the players were able to do what they did, and that lifted the whole stadium. You know, I didn't hear a single Levy out chant in the second half.
No, yeah, that's right.
I think as a fan base, we need to stop being so fucking reactionary and have a slightly longer term view than, you know, seeing a player make a bad pass and booing him because, you know, he's made 50 great passes in the game, but he makes one bad pass, we get on his back. You know, we need to be better than that because otherwise we're no better than the mob from South London, and that makes me feel sick.
But let's not get away from a couple of things here. So number one, in terms of the ownership, and we're not having another ownership discussion, is that they've been doing this for 22 years. So there's a lot of frustration that has been built up. And when things are going badly on the pitch, is when you will get more of a reaction from the crowd about the ownership, which manifests itself in the atmosphere, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, you know, we all know going back from the year dot that Tottenham, we love our club. We like to think we've got a great supporters base, but we can list 20 odd players who've been singled out by the crowd over the years, whether it's right, wrong, whatever. It's the same as most other clubs as well. And I'm not excusing it, but I'm saying you can go back to, I don't know, John Pratt, Sam Ways, Dazelle. We can do a whole long list of players, Vega, the lot, right? And it's not right, and I get that. And what happened with Sanchez was disgraceful, and Stellini really threw him under the bus that day. But the fact of the matter is that you've had players who've been in that club and in that squad for way too long who should have been got rid of a long time ago. And there is that sense of frustration now amongst the fan base, which I'm not saying is the majority of the fan base, but it's now more sizable than it's been previously, reacting to what has been a disappointing season, because we all got excited at the end of last season that we thought we had the momentum and we're on the cusp of really kicking on.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with you. I just think that we need to have our voice heard in the right places, and I don't have any issues with people who think that the ownership of the club is not good enough and things need to be changed. Don't have an issue with that. I don't see how voicing that whilst expecting your team to go out and play their fucking skins out for the club is productive in any way, shape or form. There's other ways of getting that voice heard.
Yeah, I think we all agree with that, Paul. I did get sent a video of the protest beforehand. I didn't have time to upload it, unfortunately. But there were more people at the protest outside, but it's still quite a small group at present. Given I saw more protests in the stadium, if anything, and I saw banners going up. They did show that on the TV. Yeah, but you're right. We've got to back the team and then go against the club before the game, halftime, after the game. We cannot, if they want to protest, no, it's difficult because people need to get home. But maybe on the next weekend game, which will be Palace, won't it, on the weekend of the coronation next Saturday, maybe they need to stay in the bowl for an hour after the game. If that's what they really want to do, they've got to make a big protest. The TV cameras will pick it up then. But having 100 people, 150 people outside on the high road isn't really getting much publicity at the moment. So they've got to make it.
If you're saying that, I know it's difficult because people want to get home, it doesn't mean that much to them then, does it? I mean, if it actually meant that much, you would be quite willing to stay behind in the stadium or to go down to, the club offices on a Wednesday afternoon in the rain. If it mattered that much to you, you would do that. All that's happening is people are being reactionary, and there's all this, Levy out talk, and then the team's not doing well, and they go, "Oh, I'll jump on that for 5 minutes." I would say that a vast majority of people, maybe not a vast majority, but a large number of people who were chanting at the game in the first half, they were chanting, "We want Enic out and Levy out," and all that kind of thing, had never really given much consideration to whether they want the club's ownership changed at all. And they were just jumping on a bandwagon. And that's just, in the middle of a game, that's shit.
I mean, Sam makes a good point here. People saying, apparently, if you go to game, you're part of the problem. But then a lot of these people who appear to be saying this do go to games. So that is a bit of an odd. I don't see any problem with supporting the club. If you don't want to buy drinks or buy merch, that's one way to go against it. But it is difficult. I can't afford to go to many games, and I don't really want to go to the games recently because they've been so poor.
But it's about separating the team from the club, isn't it, John? So, you've said that support the team and stand up against the club. And that's okay. But we've got to remember those 11 guys out there, are not going to respond to us sitting there going, "You're shit, you're shit, you're shit."
Absolutely. Yeah. And also, if the whole stadium's chanting Enic out, we want Levy out, that's not going to help the team either during the game. So it needs to be
a negative atmosphere.
Yeah. Absolutely. We had a few chances, but before a few of our chances, Bruno Fernandes walked through our defence and somehow hit the bar from about 6 yards. And it would have been a fantastic goal, to be fair to him. Jack, what did you make of that?
I think our defense is as open as that kebab shop that Dave had frequented, after the few beers he had last night. I think that's just what it is. I mean, we're always going to concede at any stage. I think we could, like I said before in the very beginning, we could be completely dominating a game, completely all over a team, and one ball over the top from a Perisic miss cross and you're well in on goal and you score. I think that's how it is with Spurs. We can concede at any stage at any time. You can watch, I think, who was it? It was Jordan Ayew, I think, once skilled pass around half of our team at one stage this season as well. And that's Jordan Ayew of all players. And I just think we are capable of conceding to anyone, to anything that moves or thinks. And I don't know. Like that's something we'll have to deal with, I think, for the remainder of the season. I know we talked about the midfield earlier, but of course we need more men in the midfield. But I do feel like these center backs could take a bit more onus and a bit more responsibility as well. You see the likes of Romero be a completely different version of himself from the Newcastle game, but I don't think Eric Dier has much changed very much, since that game at all. So I think that's a good example. And I think also as well, other defenders have proven, that they can do the job and others cannot. I think we have some proactive defenders in our team, and then we have some players whose first step is always backwards and whose first step is always to expect someone else to do the job for them. So I think we'll always expect to concede. And also as well, if I'm not mistaken, that Bruno Fernandes thing was right through the hole of Eric Dier's spot as well. So I think we're expected to concede at any stage. I don't know. He looked like he destroyed 3 or 4 players, and he destroyed 3 or 4 of us in that one move itself. It looked.
It's definitely long though.
Yeah. Well, we'll save it for the sacred cow. That's a good evidence for you, Dave. But for me, I think we can concede to anything that pretty much moves. So that's something we'll have to.
Okay, I want to ask all 4 of you. Give me a 1 to 10. So 10 being worst. How bad was Bruno's miss? 1 to 10. Dave.
It was Ronnie Rosenthal-esque for Liverpool v Villa.
I didn't get another angle on it. I didn't get another replay. I just saw him hit the bar, but I'm not sure.
Come on, give me a 1 to 10 score, boys.
It was bloody awful. 10. 10's awful.
Okay. James?
He has to score, right? So, 9. It's not an open goal, but 9. Yeah.
Is it as bad as Dele Alli's against Liverpool from last season?
God, I don't even remember that.
How do you not? That was one of the best. Or was it as
I
bad as Eric Dyer's in that last match? That open header.
I'm just going to come to that.
Get ahead of yourself. I didn't read the script.
Jack, you've gone early, mate. 7 at worst.
I think the one we're talking about later was worse. So 7.
What about the Richarlison one 2 games ago? The header.
Also, that one was also worse.
It was a simple question, everybody. Just answer the simple
7 or
question.
6. I'm lowering it to a 5.
Okay.
I would have missed it.
7 at worst.
I would have missed
7
it.
at
So
worst.
5.
Okay, right. So the Eric Dier. I'm going to take Dave and Paul will know what I'm talking about. 1982 Spain. Kevin Keegan off the bench. Do you remember his header?
Yeah,
I do remember his header.
Yeah.
I was 11.
Yeah, I know.
I was
5, so I didn't exceed the time.
I was 11. I was 11? 10, 11.
Yeah,
that was a bad one. He missed it. Great England kit though. Check it out if you like your.
Yeah, I've got one.
Have you got that
England kit?
Yeah. I thought, do you know what? I'm talking about it. I'm going to go and order one after the show. Yeah, that was bad.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to stop, Dave. I've just seen this comment. I don't even know it. Not that one. This one. Don't even know what it means, but I just think that's brilliant. I think Bruno suddenly realised he's Martin Keown's love child. Just made me laugh anyway.
But that's suggesting that Martin Keown could score.
Hey.
You're welcome. I'm here all week. Try to fish.
He's here all week. So what was this one? Dyer's miss. Are we talking about Dyer's miss now? Bloody awful.
Yeah. 10. King says 10. James?
I'm not going to use the words I use in the pub because I actually saw the miss. I had that long walk back from the table after, missing a shot. And, of course, in the pub, it does at least end in the consolation of a proper drink, unlike those playing at the Crucible. But that miss,
pull shot as opposed to a shot of right. Okay.
It really did. It made me go up to the bar and order something stronger. It was atrocious. 10 out of 10. Has to score. I'd have scored there.
Okay. Jack, you've already basically said this was a far worse miss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 10 out of 10 for me. He could have used any body part, and it looked like he closed his eyes too as well.
Well,
it's definitely worse, but 8 at worst. I think Son's miss was worse.
Dyer's header was made worse because Kane could have scored instead. Was Kane next to him? I can't remember. I was thinking back to Liverpool games though, and do you remember when everyone says about Bergwijn hitting the post and missing another 1-on-1 in the lockdown time? Kane missed an absolute sitter of a header from about 6 yards in that game. I think he put it straight at the keeper when it was 1-1 as well. But everyone forgets that because Bergwijn obviously had 2 really good chances.
What about Hojbjerg?
So even Kane misses
but Hojbjerg at Anfield last season when he tried to head it across at the end and he could have scored easily.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right.
But Paul made a good point, and Janet's picked up on it there. So Sonny's miss was horrendous.
Yeah,
indeed. Yeah. Well, yeah.
But we all
Sonny's
forgive it
still not on it. Even his goal, he scuffed. He mishit it, and it actually helped it go in. I think if he put it properly, he would.
I disagree. I think he opened up as because I think if he wanted to hit it to the side that De Gea was going, he would have hit it with his left foot, or he would have tucked it into that whatever the side that De Gea was diving towards. But he seemed to be opening up his body, which means he was trying to hit it across De Gea, who was diving across the other way. And then if he was opening up his body to hit it across, back the other way from where De Gea was diving, he clearly did it in a pretty. If that was his intention to hit it across De Gea, the opposite side of where he was diving, he did that quite well. And he almost did it, if anything, kind of like an Ozil used to do that. Ozil used to hit it into the ground, kind of scuff it into the ground, and that always threw keepers off. So I think I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
But generally they were disallowed because his eyes were offside.
Yeah, with Ozil, right? Oh, yeah. Exactly right. I think Sonny though did miss a sitter before that, so I could be wrong. But it looked like he had the exact same body. He had the exact same body angle, the way he was trying to finish it from the one he missed. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He was going for the same thing.
I mean, he definitely could have taken a touch and then just put it in the corner, which is something he.
Oh, it wasn't pretty at all. Wasn't pretty at all. But no. I think he was aiming for it. I think he was aiming for the far post.
But that one moment speaks massively to the man's confidence, because last season he would have done exactly that. So going back to having the life trained out of him, he's been told to play a particular way for the last 18 months, which isn't working for him. His confidence is shot. And it's only really in the last 3 or 4 games that we've started to see glimpses of what we know Son can be. So until he gets that confidence back, which is going to happen through things like scoring the scuff shots and stuff like that, his confidence is going to be growing. And until he gets that back to the level that it should be at, I think we're going to see a shadow of the player that we saw last year. And that confidence in a team is what's the fucking word I'm looking for? What's the word when you catch things? Brain's not working. It's too fucking early. It's infectious. Thank you for jumping in and not helping me at all.
Well done.
Contagious.
I almost said STIs as well, so that would have given you the clue.
We're slower than you.
So if one player is low on confidence, then that's going to spread through the rest of the team. And as those players start to build confidence, then that's going to spread through the team as well. So the more that players like Son regain their confidence, the more that the midfield are going to be confident in putting it through to him, the more that Kane's going to be confident in finding him, and it's going to grow and grow and grow. We've got the same thing that needs to happen with our defence as well. Yes, Eric Dier is not the best in the centre of defence. Yes, Longlay's not the best on the left. But as they get more confident in the players in front of them, as they get more confident in the keeper behind them, their performances will improve as well.
You see, I'd counter that. Well, I'm going to say
Dier's been here 10 years, so it's I mean, people to be confident.
But confidence is a fragile thing, Jack.
Yeah, but I'd sooner give confidence to Longley or other players that have been here with fewer players around them than Dier's had a full 2 11s, 3 11s of midfielders and whatnot that he's had around him. He's had so many different people around him, and I don't know. But
the past isn't important. Now's important.
Now is important.
Right now, he's the only choice we've got. Where is he at right now?
I don't think he's the only choice we got. I think we could throw Tanganga in there. I don't think he'd do much worse at this rate.
I don't think that he's going to hold the other two together. I think that we're
probably not, but he's not. I just think Dier's standards are falling. He's playing like he was in October, in my opinion. In October, he was just costing us the season with mistake after mistake, and I think he's doing the same right now. And so,
what's that down to? Because if that was back in October and then November, December, he starts playing all right, that's nothing to do with ability. That's to do with something else.
I think a lot of it is down to his own ability. It's just, in my opinion, I think he just has.
Okay.
He's just
we've been going almost now, so I want to wrap this bit up. I just want a couple of comments. Substitutions. I don't really remember a time when I've been so positive about substitutions that when he brought Kulu on after an hour, and it made a real difference. I thought probably Kulu's best game since the World Cup. Conversely, when he brought Tanganga on for Son in the 86th minute or whatever it was, it just felt, and I think the team felt it as well, that we were happy to shut up shop. We just stopped trying to win the game at that point. And I thought that United were there for the taking. They played 2 hours on Sunday. They were tired. Fred came on at the same time as Kulusevski and had the worst game of his life, I think, which was brilliant, especially as Eriksen had been having a great game. But, well, Paul, what was your thought on Tanganga coming on? Not necessarily against Tanganga, but making that change.
Well, I think that we've conceded more goals after the 90th minute than any other team in the Premier League. So you can certainly understand Mason's thinking. And, you know, I said earlier, we've got to have a slightly longer term view than the last kick. And I think that Mason is going, if we get a 2-2 draw out of this after being 2-0 down, this is going to really help build confidence. Yeah, we can go for it, but if we go for it, we're likely to expose ourselves. And, you know, we know they've still got players with pace on the pitch. We know that we've got players that don't have pace at the back. We can actually get done here, you know. And so for me, it was a sensible choice to bring Tanganga on and to, you know, effectively shut up shop.
Okay. I mean, Janet's saying trying to avoid what happened in Bournemouth. Very good point.
Spot on.
King saying Kulu was impactful, gave us more attacking impetus, quite I'd say after a gin, but his final product was still a bit off. I agree with that. He's not back to where he was last season, but it was definitely a better performance from him and Son. Can I just give a bit of a shout out for Danjuma, who he hardly touched the ball, but again, the same as against Brighton, it was his pressing of De Gea that led to De Gea kicking it long and Romero winning the header, which led to the equaliser. And I'd just like to see him given a chance because he seemed to have so much energy and he really helped the team as a whole, I thought, James.
Yeah, I have to agree a bit. I mean, I'll bring back substitutions a little bit. You know, I think when you look at them, and I always worry with managers who make late substitutions, but Kulu, brilliant stuff. Before Kulu was positive when he came on. I think I covered this last night a little bit from what I recall. I spoke about Kulu. You know, Danjuma came on 77th minute. Well, he was positive as well. You know, these are positive substitutions. These are the right kind of substitutions. You know, Tanganga comes on, that's a completely separate conversation. Difficult momentum, eh? Understandably so that he came on, perhaps, but, you know, separate conversation. I think everyone who came on, you know, I think both Kulu and Danjuma and even Davies, I think they're all positive for us. So I think those are 3 brilliant substitutions. I don't, you know, and then you look at that. We were better than them on expected goals. I think I read earlier that's the most expected goals we've created all year. And the only time we've produced a similar expected goals to that was before the World Cup, right?
October. I heard earlier on the View from the Lane podcast, it was October was the last time we had higher.
That's crazy. So, that's mental, yeah. Right? You know, it just shows a little bit of confidence and freedom for the players, and they can create a lot of chances and score goals. So that you know, that's what that shows me. But anyhow, bit of a tangent.
So I'm just going to bring up this. If you want to listen, we've gone over an hour on this. If you want to listen any more about the game, very good podcast done by Franco and Seb with Sky Sports Kate Mason. Get it on all your best podcast providers. Just search for the Cheese Room podcast. I listened to it this morning. Good luck. So, shall we discuss? What shall we discuss? Do you want to discuss the Harry Kane comments, Dave? Should we go on to that?
Yeah, no, look, it's just we want to move on, but it was interesting that Kane did an interview post the game or yesterday about the fact that there was a clearly air talks were held with Levy on Monday. The chairman asked for a meeting. Kane goes, I obviously won't go into what was said, but I think it was important for him to understand where the players' heads were in at that moment. So, you know, that's kind of the first time that you've really kind of explicitly heard Levy actually talking to the players, being publicly acknowledged in the media. I've never heard that before in the 20 odd years he's been there. So I just think it was, a circling of the wagons this week because after what happened last weekend. So, I think that you've seen a lot of things announced this week, about the fan advisory board that's been announced this week and how we're going to do that. There's another bit of news as well that I've completely forgotten. It's quite clear that the board are feeling the heat at the moment, which I think it should be the case. And there's a lot of stuff kind of in the media about what they're doing about things. I mean, they obviously took the action about Stellini straight after the game, more or less. And that's where we are at the moment. We are circling the wagon. So I think to Paul's point before, I think on balance, it was very important we didn't lose that game, because if we'd have lost that game on the back of the 6-1, then the narrative and the focus would have continued for longer and going into Liverpool.
Yeah. Okay. Any views, anyone on that, Paul?
I think that that absolutely there had to be discussions with the players, because we've talked about how the team has been set up for 18 months. When I say we, I mean me. I've talked about how it's been set up for 18 months. Stellini was just really Conte light, so he was Conte without the technical nous. The change that he tried to make was appalling. The players didn't step up to it, whether it was the fact that they just didn't get it, or I don't know. Was it like 3 minutes before we go on, we've changed to a back four? Not sure what was going on there. But the players obviously felt that they were being hampered in their efforts in some way to have those conversations with Levy. And it's again, it's kind of unfortunate that the director of football that we employed is allegedly a crook, and so we don't have that. We don't have that in between person, because I think really, if people are calling for Levy out, but if they look at the business side of the club from where we were 20 years ago, it's amazing. What we've not got is the football side of the club. So I think rather than getting rid of the very clever businessman who's steered our club to a very strong financial footing, what we need to be doing is putting someone in charge of football. And I know we've just employed this Australian guy who probably seems to know less about football than I do, which is saying quite a lot. But I don't think that he's the right person. I think we need a proper football man in between the business and the team. And then Levy doesn't have to have this conversation.
That is the plan
with a football man.
I think a director of football will come in, but my understanding is they want to appoint the coach first, and the coach will have an input to the director of football, which is a bit backwards because they're their boss, but at the same time, you want them to be able to have a relationship with that person. So
you do. But the director of football's role really is to define how we as a team play football and what sort of players we should be attracting into our club based on that style of football. The manager is then there to implement that. So to bring in a manager and then go, well, we need to find a director of football to fit this manager is really quite arse about face.
That's why I'm saying it's a bit backwards. Yeah. So
I'm agreeing with you. Sorry, did you not get that I was agreeing with you? I know I don't do it very often.
Yeah, but you just basically repeated what I was saying. That's all I was saying. Yeah. So,
in a more succinct way.
Thanks for coming. Jack, talk to me about this. Ranieri's comments on Nagelsmann.
He was twerking a few unts this week. Rangnick seems to be very interested in taking the Tottenham job, the Tottenham Arbeit. And he's obviously worked with Nagelsmann in the past. He's maybe twerking for Nagelsmann as well at the same time. He seems to be doing a lot to just get back into the football business, Rangnick, and he's eager to get back in some sort of job of some kind, and he's making it quite well known. I think he'd be fine to take in as a director of football. I probably prefer maybe some other, maybe former or maybe current, maybe RB kind of guy, Red Bull guy, but he's been very successful, and he was basically the foundation of sort of the whole Red Bull, footballing group, with their scouting department in the first place. So he is kind of the forefather of it, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously very experienced, but I do feel like, I don't know, I'd maybe rather someone else that doesn't have that big name and reputation. If that's Nagelsmann's pick, like you said, John, if we're going about it some sort of backwards kind of way where it's like manager first, director of football second, I think maybe
Pat's got a mouse. Give me a second.
I think it's Nagelsmann's choice. It's Nagelsmann's Vela.
Yeah, I mean the comments from Rangnick this week is like, to Sky Germany, he's talking about the fact that Tottenham have got one of the most modern, beautiful stadiums in the world at the moment, one of the best training centres there is, and Daniel Levy, who's been running the club for many, many years.
He basically just said Daniel Levy exists in that lap bar. He's like, and Daniel Levy exists.
There's a stadium, there's a training centre, and Daniel Levy has been in existence for a very long time, is what he said, in a German accent, obviously. So I think with Nagelsmann, we're going to talk about this later. I might as well talk about it now. When 2 years ago, Rangnick, I didn't have a problem with Rangnick coming in as a director of football but before we appointed Paratici, and I'd heard more about Rangnick. I was quite happy with the Rangnick-Potter combination coming in 2 years ago in the Nuno summer. I thought that would be the way forward. The time that he had at Man United, it's not his job to be a first team coach, and he inherited a complete shit show. So I don't have that as an issue. I just think that now that we're back to square one yet again, another project yet again, and a reset. If Nagelsmann comes in and he says get Rangnick on this occasion, I don't think that's a problem at all, because when we know they're in lockstep. We know in the past that Pleat and Hoddle didn't get on in that relationship. We know in the past that Kamoli and Joel didn't get on that relationship. So we're resetting. We just have to do it this time in that circumstance.
Paratici and Conte got on, but that didn't help much.
No. The issue with Paratici and Conte, aside from one of them allegedly being a crook, is it's old school football. And, you look at teams even like Brighton, and they're doing new tactical tricks. Like they're baiting the press of the other team, and they're creating little passing triangles to trick the other team into pressing. So then when they've effectively beaten the press in their own defensive third, they can play long balls. You're looking at that stuff. You're not seeing that Spurs. This is bloody Brighton, lads. Like Ragnarok. Not Ragnarok. I read Ragnarok and said it. Ralph I would love him as director.
Bring in the God of Thunder. Is that what you're saying, James?
I mean, I do have a Norse Rune. I do have a Norse Rune necklace. That would fit. But Ralph Rangnick, I think, brilliant director of football.
Yeah.
I mean, he's twerking for the job. But you know what? Isn't that what we complain about all the time? When a manager comes in or any staff member comes in and they treat Spurs as if we were their fifth choice or something. Well, this is someone who bloody wants to come here. And I'm sure if he came here, Nagelsmann would like it. Isn't that what we want? Someone who comes in and actually really wants to be at Spurs, sees the potential in the team. Okay, whatever. His stint at Man United is kind of irrelevant because he came in as a coach of a pretty mediocre side. And he was there as an interim, then pissed off to Austria. So sorry, HG, but I don't know. I think the two of them is modern pressing football, and there's some continuity there in a director of football and a project manager. I think, mate, Levy. If I'm Levy's advisor, I'm telling him to pick up the phone, get them both, or just get Rangnick, because I think, even if you don't necessarily want Nagelsmann, like HT said earlier in the group chat, you want someone more charismatic. I think Rangnick is absolutely the best director of football on the market at the moment that we could get. And if anyone disagrees with that, fair enough. But I don't.
Yeah, I've got another name, James. But go on. Sorry.
In the vein of football we want to play, he is one of the best in the world. So I'd go for him. I don't think anyone would be upset if Rangnick and Nagelsmann came in. Would anyone be upset with that here on the panel or in comments? Would anyone be upset?
Not necessarily, but I think that the most important thing that we've got to look at with having a director of football manager coming in is that we've got to have an identity back, because we had an identity for 5 years under Poch, an identity as a team, identity as a club, and an identity as a fan base. And then that got royally fucking ripped away from us, and we currently have nothing. We don't know who we are as a team. We don't know what we're supposed to expect as a fan base. And, the outside of the financial matters, the club is just flailing. So we need someone who can come in and bring us that identity back as a team and as a fan base. And if that's Nagelsmann, I'm right behind it.
But I think there's a big issue, generally speaking, with the identity of the club, right? So, comments like this, because if you look at the identity of the club from a traditional point of view, picked up cups, played exciting football, and once in a while made a challenge for the league. Not often, pre-Poch, yeah? And I think now, another name to Nagelsmann, I'd say, is Michael Edwards, the guy who was at Liverpool, who's not working at the moment. And he worked with Klopp and the Fenway Group to great effect. He was an analyst working with Comolli at Tottenham, and he ended up with Comolli at Liverpool. So he's another name I'd chuck in the mix. And this Scott Munn or Man, I always get his bloody name wrong. Look, I don't have a problem in the fact that he was at AFL, 2000 Olympic Committee, and then he's been part of the City Group for 4 or 5 years and done what he's done. He's running the football operation, including the women's team. He's making sure there's the infrastructure in place for us to have as a footballing operation, and he's running the footballing operation. The layer down is the director of football, which we will get in reports into Scott. And as said, a Nagelsmann or an Edwards, I'd be happy with. Not Nagelsmann, Ragnick and an Edwards, I'd be happy with. And then if we get Nagelsmann in, I do think there's a little bit of a German AVB vibe about him. In that how is he going to go with senior players? But as I've said it on here recently, whomever comes in, and if they say X, Y, and Z have got to go, no matter who they are and what kind of sacred cow they are at the club to the support base, the ownership, the structure says, you want to play this type of football and you don't think those players fit into what we do, then we sell them and we get in players that we want, and we have to be aligned. And that's how we're going to get the identity back. And to a previous comment that you made, Paul, about Levy and this, that, and the other, is that being the chairman of the football club and what he's done as the business, yep, you can list a number of achievements that he's made, and I get that. But a very large part of being the chairman of the football club, and in the structure that we have, in the ownership structure that we have, it's on him to make the footballing appointments and the footballing decisions. And more often than not, over his tenure, he's got it massively wrong, which is why people are frustrated. And if we had the identity on the pitch and maybe we picked up a trophy by now, or we were, the feel-good factor was there. To my mind, the go-karting, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Beyonce, I wouldn't care less, because what was on the pitch was going well. And that's what I think is upsetting people as well at the moment.
But I do, going back to something that I said a lot earlier, I do think that when the Pochettino era was coming to an end, what was coming out of the fan base was, we need to win a trophy. We want a winner. We want a winner. We want a winner. We want a winner. And so, we all want Daniel Levy to listen to us. And then when he listens to us and it goes wrong, we go, well, what the fuck do you listen to us for? So, yes, Levy has responsibility, but we all have to understand that we're part of this club too. And if you want to be part of the club, then you've got to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
But then if we want, and he's hired the winners, the Mourinhos, the Contes, spending 18 million quid on a Jed Spence who Conte didn't want. If you're going to get your win here now managers in, you've got to give them what they want to a T. Now, there's always the argument that every manager never gets what he wants, but Mourinho wanted Skriniar, he got Bale, he got Rodon. Conte, Danjuma, Spence, club signings, all that kind of thing. It's always going to, Mourinho, Conte, it's always going to end this way. And I, as a Spurs fan, didn't mind making the metaphorical deal with the devil of play crap football, win a trophy. I was happy to do that. I've seen us play brilliant football and win trophies, but given where we are now, that's what I was looking for. So I'm not going to be a hypocrite and go, oh no, I don't want Mourinho, I didn't want Conte. I was happy to live with crap football, and really for kind of like the last couple of months of last season, we were playing decent counter-attacking football, scoring a lot of goals. It was entertaining to watch.
Yeah, so that's for about 2 months out of the last 4 years. I wasn't willing to make that deal. And, you know, if you don't believe me, go back and listen to episodes of the Cheese Room back when Pochettino was getting sacked, because I was arguing then that the last thing I want to do is sit and watch 38 1-0 wins.
But the football under Pochettino in that Champions League season, the football under Pochettino was pretty poor. It wasn't great.
Okay,
in the second half of the season,
let me tell you the parable of Dewsbury Hall. Like, while I've got time, let me tell you the parable of Dewsbury Hall. So Steve Diver has got this beautiful Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow, right? And he has this driver. This driver's called Morris. And this driver gets him everywhere on time. And, you know, it's lovely, and is arriving earlier than he probably should. And this driver, Morris, says, hey, Steve, the engine needs rebuilding. And all the backseat drivers, all the kids are going, we need to get there quicker. We need to get there quicker. Get rid of Morris. So he does. He gets this bloke in called Joe. And Joe starts taking it cross country, right? And the car starts failing. And he can't understand what's going on. So he kicks him out and he brings in this guy called Tony. This guy called Tony starts doing hill climbs in the Silver Shadow. And eventually the wheels fall off. The engine falls apart. The dodgy Colombian carburetor falls apart. And the Rolls-Royce is a piece of shit. And it's a piece of shit because it hasn't been rebuilt from all the years ago when Morris said, rebuild the Rolls-Royce, Steve. And all the kids in the back went, no, get me another driver. There you go. The parable of Dewsbury Hall. You are fucking welcome.
I think we might clip that up.
Yeah, definitely. Dave, kid's got a question for you. What would change with the new chairman?
Well, I don't know. Is that a question? Because you didn't put a question mark at the end of the sentence. So I'm just saying. What would change with the new chairman? Well, I mean, look, you know, are we saying a new chairman, new owner, right? So one of the arguments is, so what would change? I would like someone who runs the club, who has the intelligence in some respects to appoint people well, who are experts at what they are doing to do that job properly. That's what I would like from a chairman. I would like from the chairman to have a better communication plan with the supporters, not the customers. I would like that to happen, because lots of times we've seen over God knows how many years radio silence. And I always say about communication, you've got three choices: say nothing whatsoever, overpromise and overdeliver and tell outright lies, or a middle ground that acknowledges, yep, we got a situation at the moment, we're trying to deal with it. Once we know, we'll let you more. That's a better way of doing things. But what would I know?
Fair enough. Are you suggesting our executive director, Donna Marie Cullen, saying it's shit isn't the sort of thing we want to hear?
It was very amusing, that, actually. Yeah. But, you know, I mean, look, you know, it's a little bit unfair on her.
Jack.
What's the context? You know, was she talking about the caviar she'd just been presented with? Who knows?
I think it was the second goal, Paul. I think it was the second goal. She didn't have caviar because Diver stole that with the lobster.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it might be the value. It might be the value of the club's investment in this renewable battery deal that we're doing at the moment, as was advised by her son. But let's move on, shall we?
Diver sent me a picture at full time being triple parked in the Tunnel Club.
That's pretty standard for Diver, and he did have a headache this morning as well. Shall we quickly discuss? We've already sort of discussed the team for Sunday. We're playing Liverpool on Sunday afternoon. They've also had a bit of a mixed season. Let me just find the league table. There we go. As you can see, they are a point behind us with the game in hand. Every time we think they're going to overtake us, they seem to lose. But generally, they do all right at home. They obviously smashed United 7-0. They came back from 2-0 down against the Gooners. Anyone got a hope we can get anything out of this? Jack?
Nearly as bad of a defense as ours. There's hope in that. They concede at a regular rate like we do. They conceded to Forest, I believe, 2 goals at home. So there's that to look at. I just think Liverpool have a very, very leaky defense, just like we do. Virgil van Dijk is, I think, nowhere near the player he used to be. Trent, they've had to move in field because they know that when in defensive moments in those wide areas, he can be taken advantage of. So they pretty much, I think, like throw every player on the right-hand side to help him out. And then I don't think Andy Robertson has looked the same player either this season. And also the majority of players that they put alongside Van Dijk have always looked a bit shaky, or if I'm not mistaken, are either injured or just coming back from injury. It's just not been a leaky defense. And also they have a similar problem that they get overrun in midfield, or that their midfield has its own kind of problems. They have very technical midfielders, but they maybe don't have the best defensive midfielders in their case too. So I don't know. I think Liverpool, if anything, you would say we could definitely score some goals against them, but we could so easily concede too.
Okay, Paul, how are we going to beat them?
I think there's a lot of anomalies this season. We talk about Liverpool being poor, we talk about Chelsea being poor, us being poor. And when you look at the league table, there's a whole heap of surprising positions in that league table. This isn't really answering your question. I'm just going off on a tangent. I think that the World Cup in the middle of the season has had a massive impact on the Premier League. And I think that can't be understated. It's thoroughly enjoyable to see the Chavs down in 11th. That's so much fun.
There they are.
Yeah, isn't that nice? But you've got to look at what's gone on in the season and the fact that we've had this break in the middle of it, and it's absolutely messed up everything. There's a fine tuning to getting a football team working at the right time, and that's exactly what happened at the end of last season for us. We worked at the right time, and as a result, we secured Champions League football. I think that Liverpool are in a similar situation to us. I think that they would have expected to be, up in probably third, second at the moment. And they're way behind where they should be. We're way behind where we should be. It's going to be interesting. I think that there's definitely goals in the game. I think that if we go out and play with the confidence and and on the front foot like we did in the second half against Man United, there's a good chance that we can score 2 or 3 against Liverpool. I think if we go out and sit back and see what happens, that they're going to score 2 or 3 against us. So it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen, particularly seeing as all my predictions I get wrong anyway. But it's going to be an interesting game. There's goals in it, and I just hope to Christ that the confidence that we got in the second half against Man United carries on.
Yeah. Talking to Chelsea, do you know that Mason's already got 1 more point than Lampard? He's lost every single game as Chelsea manager in this stint. So that's quite a good start anyway. Dave, you got any hope for Sunday at all? Bear in mind, we've won 5 times there since 1912.
Look, I think with Liverpool, just following on from Paul's comments, is that you don't remember that last season. Don't remember that last season they were in the finals of all 4 the 3 cup competitions they were in, and up for the league. They played a massive weight of games. I was talking to a Liverpool fan in October, November, and he was at the Champions League final, and he said the absolute state that they were in at the final whistle, they were distraught on the pitch, and they've had a real hangover from that, similar to us after when we were in the Champions League final. Obviously, and the World Cup and the impact of that can't be underestimated as well. But you bear in mind, of course, Salah didn't go to the World Cup, but he's not been the same player since he signed the contract for one reason or another. Not sure how much they bought over the summer. I didn't get the impression they bought a lot over the summer, and I think that's had an impact as well. They need to fix the midfield. For me, I think one of Emerson Royale's best games in a Tottenham shirt was Anfield last season. I thought he had a fantastic game then. Those games, City away, Liverpool away, is where I think he's important for us. I think he did an even Hoddle-esque through ball for the goal off the top of my head.
It was up and under. It was like a rugby up and under, mate.
Nah, he meant it. He meant it. So the challenge that we've got is if we've still got Perisic and Porro going to play because of fitness of other people, that's going to be a challenge for us because, as we know, defensively they're not sound. I think it's important, and I know it's contradictory to say it given what's happened in the last two away games, or the last two games, that we don't concede early. We know we do. But our away record this season has been pretty poor. So the best that we can hope for is a draw, but our ability to shut up shop for 90 minutes, we don't have it with our injuries and the personnel that we have. So a draw is the best we can hope for, I'm afraid.
I think you
James,
see
you got any
Davis
hope?
instead of Perisic for
Yeah.
this, David.
Yeah,
for that
mate, yeah.
reason.
If
Yeah.
he's fit, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's good chat. And that's exactly what Craig's just said. Thinks Dave's coming. James?
Well,
Do you think-
I gave
Go on.
my take on what I think will happen last night. I'm more sober than I was then, but I stand by it. I mean, look, I'll be watching the game with my grandparents with my not on my father's side, on my mother's side, because it's his birthday, apparently, my granddad's. So me and him will inevitably sink several bottles of wine, probably. So I'm going to be watching the game. Anyway, I believe. You know, if you don't believe, how can the players believe? You know, you got to have positive energy, right? That's something some girl who had crystals in her room once said to me. Anywho, yeah, 3-2. It's going to be a late comeback. I think, honestly, we can't set sharp shop. It's one of those games you just got to go for it. I'd rather lose 3-2 than lose 1-0, you know? I'd rather we actually went for it. We think of it as a free hit and we try and get something. The only thing I can think of is if it's, 2-2 late on, because their defense is awful, as is ours, to be fair. If it's 2-2 in the 80th minute, we shut up shop, because you take that. I would take that. I think most people would. So I think there'll be a lot of goals. Liverpool score, Spurs will score, and it's gonna be one of those games that's probably really entertaining for, people who don't support Liverpool or Spurs, but it's going to keep us stressed out the entire game. But I think we're going to sneak it. I believe we're going to sneak it 3-2, but it could just as easily be a 3-2 win to Liverpool. But I have some faith we'll get something up in.
Okay. So you're going 3-2. Paul, what's your prediction?
I've already said I don't want to predict it.
Okay, fine. I'll jump with you, Jack.
I'll answer.
I see a draw at the most. I could see this being high scoring. So someone said a Desmond in the comments. I could see a Desmond again.
Okay. Davo?
1-0.
I worry that Gakpo's looking very dangerous at the moment. I'm going to go 3-1 to Liverpool. I did that last week with Newcastle, went 3-1, and that didn't turn out very well. So hopefully it'll be the reverse this week. I think Paul's got a few minutes left before he needs to rush off. So shall we just quickly race through our score? Paul, are you going to duck out of this, or are you going to do predictions of other teams?
No, look, I'm quite happy to do that. I just don't think that the Liverpool one's predictable. I think that it really depends on what shows up.
Okay. Jack, do you want to kick us off with Palace West Ham lunchtime game tomorrow?
West Ham are sadly on a roll, but let's hope that Hodgson is continuing the free-flowing football. Let's go 3-0 Palace.
Wow.
Oh,
2-0 Palace, because I want to see a championship side over here in Australia.
James? James? Palace West Ham.
I have a mate who is a West Ham fan, unfortunately, but he's Italian, so weird on that. So I know he'll bet on West Ham to win, and he never ever makes any money betting. So I think Palace are going to win 2-1.
Davo?
Palace 3-0.
I'm going to go. Wow. I'm going to go 1-1 for this one. Brentford Forest. I'm going to go 3-1 Brentford. Davo?
4-0 Brentford. Forest are awful and away awful.
James? Brentford Forest.
2-1 Brentford.
Oh.
4-1 Brentford. I agree. Forest are awful, but they will score.
Jack?
2-0 Brentford. I think it'd be the most boring game of the weekend.
I mean, King Hold's called it 3 crap games. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Jack, do you want to do Brighton Wolves then?
Yes. Lopetegui grabs a 1-1.
Okay. Paul?
2-2. I do think it's a draw.
Ooh. James?
4-0 Brighton.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think
David?
they're too good.
Brighton 3-2.
I don't even know the last time Wolves conceded 4 goals. They always only concede like 1 or 2.
I'm going to go 2-1 to Brighton. I think they'll come back after their defeat at Forest in the week. And then bigger fixture this Sunday. Got 5 games. Obviously, we've covered Liverpool Spurs. So Bournemouth Leeds. I'm going to go 2-0 to Bournemouth. David?
Bournemouth Leeds. That's a bank holiday weekend. Leeds are going to be...
It's going to be a lot of Leeds boys down in Bournemouth, isn't there?
There's going to be a lot of trouble there. I'm going 2-1 Bournemouth.
James?
2-0 Leeds.
Oh,
The City of my birth beat Bournemouth 2-1.
oh, okay. Jack?
Gary O'Neill has proven to be a good manager. I think he's winning this one 3-1, 2-1, 2-0 convincingly, though.
Okay. Fulham, Manchester City. Live on Sky, apparently, for those of us in the UK. Any chance of Fulham here? Or will they just hopefully roll over for Man City to walk all over them, Jack?
Yeah, it's no Mitro. If it's still no Mitro, it seems like he's just been banned from football entirely. Man City, I think they're just going to roll over them. I'm going to say 3-0, 3-1. But I really hope they do because we need them to.
Oh,
I can't see anyone in the Fulham defence stopping Haaland, so it's going to be 3 or 4.
okay. James?
Yeah, it's going to... I share the sentiment. 4-0 City.
David?
I think it'll be 3-1 to the team that the sports washing team who breached financial fair play regulations to win another title because we obviously don't want the Gooners to win it. So 4-1 City.
Morals sacrificed.
That's right.
Yeah, your morals have to go at this point, I'm afraid, Dave.
Moral expediency, it wins the day.
Yeah, I think 3-0 to City. Right, now this is an interesting game. Manchester United against Villa, because obviously they're either side of us. I don't think we're going to catch United, but we need United to beat Villa for us, really. I'm going to go... I think this could be a 2-2 at Desmond, actually. Dave?
So this is for our Europa hopes, you're saying now?
This is the fight for the Conference League.
So the Thursday night, which means Sunday games, which means Monday morning, which is a pain in the ass for us Aussies. So I think it'll be a 2-2.
Okay, James?
I think it can go either way, but I think United are going to win 2-1.
Okay, Paul?
I think Eric's going to be tearing them a new one after the capitulation in the second half against us. So I think they're going to come out firing, and I think it's 3-1.
Jack?
I could see Unai Emery throwing 11 midfielders on with Ollie Watkins up top. So I think this could be a 1-1. I don't think Eric Ten Hag is going to have a good time.
He's playing 13 players there, Jack.
Say that again?
He's playing 13 players there, then.
No, I just mean it feels like he throws on kind of like Lampard does, like every player on the pitch is a midfielder and, just tries to clog up the midfield as much as possible. And it seems to be working for him, Unai Emery. I think it was like McGinn, Ramsey. I don't even know. It was I saw 12 midfielders.
McGinn plays on the right winger, doesn't he, effectively, tucked in?
Yeah. It was too many midfielders on one pitch at one time.
Unai Emery, prime example of a coach who's come in with the same players, turn them around to a completely different team.
Oh, yeah.
It can be done.
Yeah, like Frank Lampard as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be the right manager, though. That's the key, isn't it, Dave? Newcastle, Southampton. So bottom of the table, Southampton, who look absolutely doomed against Newcastle, who've scored a few goals this week, Jack.
Yeah, Newcastle, I don't know. I think they're running away with it. They're just 'Cause top four is just they're breathing it. They seem to want it more than even Man United do. I think it's convincingly theirs. I could see this being 3-0, 4-0 within the first half.
Yeah, look, you'd like to think that Southampton have got a bit of fight about them. I mean, they definitely put up a fight against the Goons. So, I don't know, maybe 4-1 Newcastle.
James?
I hate Southampton, so 5-0 Newcastle.
Fair enough. Dave?
I mean, I think the thing you have to bear in mind about Newcastle is that they haven't had any cup games since the League Cup final, which I think was February. So they've really benefited from not having that anymore. But saying all that, 4-1 Newcastle, Southampton going down.
Well, I think it's going to be 4 or 5-1, to be honest. I can't see. Southampton are just terrible, aren't they? Liverpool's supposed to be done. And then Monday, as HG said last night, this has got like a boring 0-0 draw written all over it. Neither team can really defend or score many goals. Jack?
I'm going to, just for the sake of Sean Dyche, he gives people that hope once again. And I don't know. This seems the most unpredictable of all the games. I'm just going to say he wins it 1-0.
Oh.
Everton 2-0.
Oh. James?
1-1 ball draw.
Yeah, I was going to ask actually, and thanks for putting that up. So let's have. Can we?
That's a good game just for the table.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask the impact on the table of this game, and this is a big one because Everton.
I mean, I think most of us predicted Leeds to lose. I think Paul predicted Leeds to win. We all think Forest will lose.
Yeah.
So a point would actually take Leicester out of the bottom three.
Yeah.
All right. Wouldn't take Everton out.
I mean, Dyche's record since he's gone in there is not actually that great. We do talk about the Dyche effect, but he's not won a huge amount of games. So and they are a mess. So in terms of my prediction, who's at home? Leicester.
Leicester at home.
Yeah, I think Leicester will win.
Leicester haven't won since they beat. Oh no, sorry, they did. They beat Wolves, didn't they, 2 weeks ago? That's the only game they've won since they smashed us.
I think Leicester will win 2-1.
I just loathe Leicester. I don't want them to win.
Why do you loathe Leicester more than Everton?
I think that it's really down to that season. That season where they had no fucking right to do what they did. It really upsets me.
Yeah. I'm gonna go. I think 2-0 Leicester actually. Everton really struggled to score goals, which means they'll probably score 3.
No chance.
Yeah, and then if you may have noticed that the bottle jobs aren't playing. Their game against Chelsea is now on Tuesday. It's been moved to Tuesday night at the request of the Met Police. It was supposed to be Saturday 5:30, but the Met Police have requested it's moved to Tuesday.
Due to tears from their previous performance, maybe many Arsenal in that police.
I'm guessing they're worried about loads of football fans in a London derby heading out to London at 7:30, 8 o'clock on a Saturday night. Probably wasn't the best planning when it could be a potential, title decider.
But there's been London.
At all that the Arsenal board have lobbied for the extra day off?
Sorry, say again.
Is there any suggestion that all the Arsenal board have lobbied for the extra days off to make the team feel better about life in the universe and everything? Because that's their MO. That's the whole thing they do.
Well, it does mean they've got less time to prepare for Newcastle away next week, the week after. So swings and roundabouts. I
cannot. But someone asked in the chat, is anyone else worried about the rest of the season with them? I cannot abide the thought of them winning anything. It just
I cannot see the way they're going because they've got to play Holding at centre back. I think Newcastle will beat them, and Chelsea probably won't because Chelsea are awful at the moment. But I think City have just got too much. They've got 2 games in hand, and only 2 points to make up. So
it would be glorious if Fat Frank's only win was against Mikel Arteta.
Yeah, I mean the only thing about City is that they still, relatively speaking, they've got a they've got a few games left. They've obviously got the Madrid 2 legs. They've done 1 leg or 2 legs. They haven't played it yet, have they?
They haven't played. It's week after next they play.
Yeah, so they got the Madrid 2 legs. They got an FA Cup final. There's 3 more games at least. And and Haaland's always struck me as always seems to be a little bit. He has to be managed game wise from a physical point of view. He kind of strikes me as that player.
By all accounts.
Yeah, so he has to be managed in that regard. Yeah. So I still, and I hate to say, and it does make me sick, think back to '89 and when they did it at Anfield. So they're on the floor, but they're not out of it yet. But of course,
City do have 2 complete teams of.
Absolutely. Listen, I know. I hate them as much as the rest of everyone else does on this panel and watching this show. However, it's still not quite over yet.
I agree.
No, but the fat lady's warm enough for vocal cords, isn't she?
She is indeed. She is.
Oh, the time that Caller got in trouble for saying a certain singer who's a Spurs fan, but we won't go there.
Adele.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Right, I think we'll leave the. I've got the fixtures for the teams going for the Conference and Europa League, but I think we'll leave that till next week. So none of us are particularly confident. There's a little bit of Paul's got a bit of hope. James has got a bit of hope for Sunday, but been a Spurs fan too long to think we're going to get anything from Anfield. But you never know.
It's the hope that kills you, John.
Absolutely, that's why we're Spurs fans.
Well, pour yourself a couple of these, and then you'll feel very confident.
I've got some gin.
Sometimes it has the opposite effect.
Mate, my day's just starting.
Yeah, it's a bit early for me.
Nothing wrong with an eye opener.
I'm going to go and watch my son play rugby. It's not a good look to wrap the car around the lamppost outside the ground.
Okay. Oh, quick question based on this comment. I think being out of Europe could be just what we need. Would you rather be in the forget the Conference League? Would you rather be in the Europa League or not in Europe at all? Jack.
Europa League.
Cool.
Europa League.
Yeah. James.
Europa League, obviously.
I think since winning the UEFA Cup in '84, possibly we got to the semi-final against Madrid in '85. We've never got further in the UEFA Cup or Europa Cup than the quarter-final every time. Yeah. Every time. So from a selfish sod point of view, the games are Thursdays. That means a lot of games Monday morning. But from the point of view of where we are as a club, I'd rather have Europa League so we can have the squad being used in that way. As long as we get a favourable draw where we get more Western European clubs and the travel time's less, then let's do that. But yeah, Europa League, Conference League. Sorry, I couldn't give a shit about it.
Fair enough. So I'm going to think we'll wrap it up. Thank you very much. Please do like and subscribe. It helps us loads. David, thank you for writing the run sheet, which I've loosely looked at this evening.
It's an absolute pleasure. Lovely to be on. And come on, you Spurs, for tonight, tomorrow.
James, thank you for impromptly coming on and replacing HG, who couldn't be bothered.
Hey, thanks for having me on as ever, Father. I love gate crashing a good party, and this party is as good as any. Bring your own beer, but
you must go to some terrible parties, James.
Well, I'm the life every party I go to, so
okay.
It's not really a party till I'm there. But thanks for having me on. Obviously, talk about Spurs as ever. I'm off to the pub, so
enjoy that. Jack, what was your evening bringing you in Brooklyn?
I have a shuffleboard birthday party to be attending. The missus has a friend who has rented out a place expensively where shuffleboard will be had. So
sorry,
can we get some videos of this sent to us?
So, pardon my ignorance. What's shuffleboard?
It's like that thing on a laminated wood sort of table and has like salt or sand, I believe, on it. And it's kind of like bocce, or where you slide a puck to a certain side of the other end of the table and you try to get it in certain ends. Yeah.
So is that what New York hipsters like your good self like to do on a Friday night?
I wish there was more shuffleboard. I want it to take over even further. So it hasn't yet.
We get a podcast on this.
Be hard to. I'll try to remember my game. I'll try to remember my throws so I could detail everyone.
And Mr. Fellows, thank you very much for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
Oh,
Just
go on.
Just for any Australians, hang on, I'm just going to rant for a bit. Just for any
Yeah,
Australians
go
that don't know, we do have a team coming out to see us in July. So if you're in Australia and you don't know about Perth, then you need to jump on the Hotspur site and have a look. There's a lot going on. It's going to be a lot of fun, even if the game's not enjoyable. But, you know, it's only West Ham, so what could go wrong?
No bubbles allowed.
Brilliant. And absolutely do follow Hotspurs and join up. That's all I've got. Loads of funny memes you put up there, Paul, on your Facebook page as well.
No, we don't. No, we don't. That is someone who is using the Hotspurs name. That is not Hotspurs. So
Really?
Tottenham Hotspurs is a totally independent thing, nothing to do with the supporters club.
And when you join Spurs,
not give them credit then.
When you join Spurs, you get car stickers, you get the nice smelling thing that you can potpourri or whatever it is that you can have hanging in front. And there's one
it's
in
called
my
an air freshener, Dave.
Thanks very much.
I can't go with infection.
I'm still.
Dave needs another coffee.
I'm struggling with shuffleboard, to be honest. Anyway, on that note, good night.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.